Andrew, thanks so much for doing the video interview with me. Very much appreciated.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're working with Sakata. Can you share some exciting innovations in the pipeline?
Well, we've been quite busy. We've had a number of changes ourselves over the past couple of years. I'm based in Europe, in charge of Europe, Middle East, Africa. So perhaps I can start with that.
Sure.
We have recently acquired a facility in Angers area of France that will allow us to enter into seed production area of France. As you know, it's a very important production area, and we have been absent from there. So we're looking at establishing more local supply to meet the needs and also to contribute to the global supply of seed. We made an acquisition 2 years ago for a cucumber program in the Middle East, beet alpha cucumbers, a segment which Sakata's not really operated in, and so was very important for us. That program is now on board, and we're very excited to be offering products into the market, and we're quite happy with its development and its contribution to the business. Lastly, we have been working with extending our activities in Almeria. It's an important market for us.
Sure.
And so we are becoming more and more present down there. It's a big change for a traditional brassica open field crop vegetable company. And so we're now being more present with more products that are suited for indoor production, particularly in Almeria. If I go further afield to the more global aspects, we have installed 2 new subsidiaries in different parts of the world. Recently in Vietnam, firstly, and secondly in Argentina. These are markets we have been operating in for many years, but we took the step to have a closer proximity to those markets, as we see that they're important for the local market, the local region, and to have better access to the growers and to better support our business. So we're excited to have those new subsidiaries on board. In the US, we started a new innovation center in Woodland area that opened this last year. Very exciting facility. It brings together a lot of different activities. It's linked globally from a research point of view, but it also supports a lot of the seed production that we do, seed processing, seed enhancement, all under one roof, which is new for us as well, and hopefully bring a better efficiency into how we manage our activities and increase our speed to market. And then lastly, India is a big market, as you well know, and we've been there for some years, but we built a new facility there for seed processing, which we opened this last February in Bengaluru. We're quite excited about that. It'll help support our Indian market business we're doing there, but also contribute to as a hub for the global seed production work that we're doing. So Sakata's been quite busy. We're quite excited with what's coming on and trying to prepare as much as we can for our future.
Excellent. You can say you're absolutely growing. That's great to see.
We are indeed. We are indeed. It creates a lot of impression in the company. We keep on growing. We have to be conscious of being able to achieve that which we set out to do. It's easy to overstep the mark and not be able to absorb and continue. So we have to take things step by step. That's part of our culture, and to make each thing as much of a success as we can.
So far you've been talking about vegetables, but I know that you are one of the very few companies, vegetable seed companies, that also combines it with flower seed. Can you share a bit about the difference of those two sectors?
I don't know that I'm the correct person to answer that question. Sakata, when it first started the activities here in Europe, we separated completely the two activities. So vegetables and flowers operates independently and for good reasons. And I'm on the vegetable side of the business. I don't interact much with my flower colleagues at all. We meet from time to time, but we operate quite independently. We did that for good reasons, and I believe that the types of markets in which we operate on are very important to separate that difference and to allow you to be more agile to work with the different customers. The way you operate in the flower market is quite different from the vegetable market. For us in vegetables, we have lots of challenges. There's a lot of consolidation going on at the moment. We have differences in access to market. A lot of it is politically oriented. Take Iran, for example. We have larger and larger demands for more performing varieties with better disease resistances, higher yields, off low resources, etc. That's not just what the consumer wants. We also need that for seed production. We have the increasingly warmer environment in which we're operating in as well, from a climate point of view, and that has a knock-on effect on all of our activities. So we're very conscious of that in trying to solve that and work with that. We have the growing issue of IP infringement. We're seeing that a lot now in vegetables. It's becoming more and more prevalent. I believe the cut flower industry, they are more familiar with this. It's been happening for a longer time. But for the seeds sector, it's more of a surprise for us. We have to battle with judiciaries that don't quite understand the vegetable industry. And it's quite frustrating for us when we enter into these issues and as an industry. That's why we have the support of organizations like the AIB. It's very important for us to be able to work with organizations like that can help us pave the way and better support us as an industry as a whole. Lastly, for vegetables, we're very much reliant on growers choosing varieties. They're looking for varieties that not only perform better for them, but are better suited to their markets. And that means we need to have quite a large footfall across the ground to push our material, get our material out there and seen. So we're very dependent upon that and on how we can access different markets. I think that's part of the problem that a lot of people have with trying to access the growing market of Africa is having people on the ground that, one, understand the market, but two, that have access into the market. And so Africa, whilst we've seen good growth in China and India, Africa will probably be the last step a lot of us have to try and conquer. But for flowers, it seems more simplistic from my point of view. When I look at the issues that we have, I'm certainly not qualified to really talk too much about the flower side. Flowers is seen more as a pleasure. It's for the sensation. It's for the enjoyment, and that's a very difficult type of market, a different type of marketing than what we would see on the vegetables. People have to eat. We can be assured of that, and hopefully vegetables will stay that way. But for flowers, it's for that pleasure aspect, and therefore it needs to be managed differently.
Yeah, I fully see that the big difference. Yeah, Sakata is operating in a very diverse seed market with huge giants at the top and very small ones and everything in between. How does that create any opportunities and perhaps challenges also for a company like Sakata?
Well, we see ourselves still as a small company, as a family company. We are family owned, and it's a culture that we still have in the company, which is quite nice. We see our competitors getting bigger, having better access to resources, which changes the complexity of the market and the amount of competition that is in there. For us, we are cognizant of the growth that we have. We know that we are growing, and long may that last. But at the same time, with growth often comes more structure, more rigidity, and we as a company want to try and avoid that. We want to try and remain as responsive and reactive to the markets as we can, and to try and continue bringing that personal relationship with the growers that we work with, and to meet their needs. And that's probably for us our largest challenge. Then, of course, innovation. We have to remain innovative. We have to make sure that we are being as fast as we can, as efficient as possible, to bring innovation into the market ahead of our competitors, to try and be that number one. And we hope with our size we have maintained that agility to continue to be as competitive as possible.
Yeah. But of course, to create those wonderful new varieties that you've been mentioning, you need a lot of well-trained plant breeders and a good toolbox.
Correct.
And some recent additions to the toolbox of the plant breeder are the plant breeding, the new plant breeding innovation techniques. Is that affecting your work at Sakata? The whole regulatory discussion around that?
Most assuredly. The vegetable market is already very complex. If we look at it from country to country, etc. This is going to add a lot more complexity to this complex industry. For us, there are a number of aspects that it does affect, not just us in the seed industry, but also from a grower's point of view. The impact there, I'm not sure we've even started to measure as yet as an industry. There are differences in regulation from country to country, from region to region, and it will affect and change the scope of production for export. And certain countries which are dependent upon export production of fruit and veg to Europe or other parts of the world will find it difficult in the future to be able to do what they are doing currently. Mm-hmm. From our side, the breeding aspect will create quite a challenge. How are we going to be able to manage that within our current infrastructure? Are we going to have to separate it out from what we're doing currently, which means we'll have to invest more? We're already investing 15 to 20% of our returns into research. It's a lot of money. To increase that means that the cost of this will be borne somewhere down the chain to the end consumer. And for all seed companies, that will be a challenge to manage. Do we create complete separate systems that control or regulate according to the different laws that are in place? Where are we going to do this breeding? Are we going to do it in an environment that is open to using these new techniques, or are we going to have to transfer from one area to another? And how will we manage that? What is going to be the best solution for us? We're still asking those questions ourselves, as I'm sure many people are. However, we know that traditional breeding is probably going to become more and more expensive. And for markets that aren't accepting these new breeding techniques, are we going to see a reduced amount of innovation and breeding for those markets because it is just too expensive to continue doing that? Or will food become much more expensive? I think those are going to be issues that we will see in the coming years. Sakata is committed to the different countries we operate in. We respect the rules and the regulations that are in place. There's no doubt about that. At the same time, we are involved with local and regional seed associations and groups to participate in the debates. And we want to contribute to those debates to show the added benefits of these breeding techniques, and that they're safe, and that they add value. They help provide us with food security and better health for the human.
Really, yeah.
And so we mustn't give up on that, and we are going to continue contributing to those.
Yeah, let's hope that happens in the near future.
I hope so.
Yeah. You mentioned the cost of doing business is going up. Plant breeding and regular conventional plant breeding will probably get more expensive, and I think that whole cost of doing business picture has also triggered a number of mergers and acquisitions, and we've seen in the past few years several examples of that. Quite a few. What is it doing with Sakata? What's your feel on that?
Well, firstly, the seed industry as we traditionally know it no longer exists. Our biggest competitors are no longer there in the format that they used to be. That's the biggest surprise for everyone. I don't think many of us expected that to happen. They now have, as we see it, much better access to larger resources, for better empowering their breeding programs and their access into different markets. It can be a little intimidating as a smaller company, seeing that kind of power that's there. At the same time, we see the field crop companies now entering into our sector. They've seen it as attractive. They've traditionally stayed out of there. So this brings a different dynamic. Do they quite understand the complexity of the vegetable seed industry? I'm not sure about that, I must admit. And they've also got to try and digest these acquisitions in some format, and they've got to make them work. Hopefully that will give us time to keep pushing on and taking edge on the market. Mm-hmm. For the future, who knows where it's going to end. I know the price tag that we're seeing on some of these acquisitions seems to be quite high. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure whether they're justified. I'm not a financial expert, so I can't really comment on the true value of these deals. But what it does do is it places an expectation in the market about values of businesses. And where you have businesses who are prepared to spend extra on acquisitions, it makes it more difficult for smaller companies to acquire, and much harder, because we'll have to search for smaller operations that we will then have to try and work with in different localities, and it'll be spread across the world. Mm-hmm. There are fewer, more integrated, larger companies that are available for I believe, for acquisition, and so it will be more difficult to develop new programs without acquiring in the future. Popfriend was a big surprise for many people. Mm-hmm. That being the biggest and the latest. Is there going to be a consolidation of that? Is it going to stop for the moment? I don't know. The question will be, who's next?
Yeah, and of course we've already, for the past few decades, we've seen several waves of mergers and acquisitions. In the 80s, we had all the petrochemical giants coming in, and it's a bit of coming and go. What I'm also seeing is that there's a lot of new startups coming here and there. South Africa, I was speaking to a South African general manager yesterday, and she said, there's numbers of new startups, and they're all becoming member of the National Seed Association. So those are also some of the counter developments that are happening. So I think what we need is probably diversity in the whole seed sector.
Yes, and I think the public gets a little concerned when there's too few players in the market. Mm-hmm. So as an industry, we need to be conscious of that as well. We saw the regulatory affairs that went on between the Monsanto acquisition, mm-hmm. And I think they'll start to pay a closer attention on the market for vegetable seeds, at least in the future.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Andrew.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.